Just shut up, stop talking, cease and desist. There's a good girl. Go, 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 go.
Moisturize me, moisturize me.
So hello, I am Regan, and I'm joined once again by Peter.
Hello.
For episode 2 of Never Ever Eat Pears. You better not be at home eating anything that resembles a pear. I don't care if it's like a weird apple. No pears.
No pears.
And we are going to be exploring episode 2 of Capaldi's run, which is called Into the Dalek. I wasn't even trying to do a voice there, but it just so happened.
It just came out.
It just came out. And one thing that I want to dive into before we even really dive into the episode is that I was an absolute cliche Doctor Who fan as a kid, and the Daleks were my favourite when it came to monsters. Was that the same for you, or did you have?
I think they were kind of, yeah.
There's something beautifully sinister about them, and the fact that they're so disassociated from anything humanoid, I think, is what makes them so fascinating.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you can't... I know sometimes there have been episodes, and this one especially is a good example of this, where the Daleks sometimes stray away from their main identity, where they are just a killing machine that can't be reasoned with.
Yeah.
But when the majority of the time when you see them like that, that's when they're at their most terrifying and most fascinating as creatures.
I think it was like Dalek with the Chris Eccleston one, and I remember I was watching it with my parents and got to the point where they'd run up the stairs to escape said Dalek, and my mum and dad were just kind of like, and then the fucking thing levitated. It just took it to a whole new level, and absolute genius.
I do. I mean, I don't suppose it matters all that much, but there are a lot of Whovians out there that I suppose misidentify that as the first time that ever happened. Yeah. And it's seventh
Doctor, I think, where you see it.
With the Imperial Dalek. Admittedly, it looked janky as hell.
You
see it shaking as it goes up. But it's pretty much a clone of that scene where the Doctor, or at least I know it's not the Doctor in the Eccleston episode that sees that happen, but it's the same kind of shock on their faces as they see that. But this episode opens up with probably one of the most heart-pumping, epic moments of a Dalek ship chasing a far smaller ship.
Yes.
And we get the beautiful kind of Time War Dalek ships, which, for me at least, are my favourite versions of the Dalek ships.
They look beautiful.
And they kind of have almost like Dalek elements about them, where you have because they are essentially just classics flying saucers.
UFOs,
You've got I think it's the central bit that rotate a different direction to the dome and underneath dome. And we get a few... I'm sorry, I do need to start making notes on character names, but I think this is something that is quite telling when it comes to Doctor Who from this point on, unlike Russell T Davies, where he wrote such iconic support characters. A lot of these characters in these later episodes aren't so iconic.
Yeah.
I will identify the general of this base as the Reverend Green from...
Yes!
From Well Done.
Yeah.
Which is, as soon as I saw it, I was like,
genius. I was like, hey, there he is.
Not even attempting to look any different. I'm sure he's still rocking the same beard. And
I think so. Same accent, pretty much. Just, he was just getting the paycheck, wasn't he? Bless him.
Which is fair. I think there's... I can't remember the name of this actress, but the lady who plays the kind of cliche American news anchor reporter, for at least Russell's run, she also makes appearances in Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures. She was in the
she popped
specials.
Into the Giggle, didn't she?
Where she was denying Zedex. And, but she actually said in an interview that Russell's been feeding my family for years.
If it works, it works.
Yeah, and it's fair, as much as we do hold these actors and actresses in quite high regard, at the end of the day, it's a job. And as much as we'd like to think that the majority of them love what they do, they're there to live, to earn a living. And so, so there's no real new Daleks that we get in this. They're just the classic Time War variant.
Yep.
And So, oh yeah, no, this is a brilliant moment that I think gets easily missed. When the Doctor returns to Clara and he kind of materializes the TARDIS in a cupboard inside the school that she's working in, he opens the door and just offers her like this tray of coffee. And I think from the first watch, I completely missed that this was the coffee that they'd gone out to get at the end
of the last episode.
He's essentially just forgot, even though that scene was really beautiful, it's completely then destroyed by the idea that she sat down in this coffee shop and the Doctor never came back.
Yeah.
He left her in Glasgow completely.
Doesn't she say something like it's been like weeks?
Yeah, and
he's just like, I just got distracted.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, it's Glasgow. I was virtually dead in a ditch.
Yeah.
Miles away from wherever I am. It is confirmed that the school that Clara works at is the same school that Susan went to, and by definition the same school that class is set in.
Yes.
Despite the fact they don't class,
actually...
there is no attempt to make that look like the same building.
None at all. No. Yeah. It's
At
like
least
an
in
extension
this.
of the building.
Yeah, no, this is a completely different set, and I'd like to think that maybe this podcast might get to class at some point, because I suppose it is a Capaldi legacy story.
Yeah.
That is something that I haven't really given much regard as where this podcast goes after Capaldi's era comes to an
Could end up over there.
It does. It's going to go somewhere, but we don't know where yet.
We'll definitely have to rewatch that.
Yeah.
Pages.
I have started to rewatch Class. Me and a band member, we watched the first 2 episodes together, and there will be stuff. So this podcast is going to go up on different places. On Spotify is probably going to be the main place, but the distribution program that I use for it will then send it. I think it's very view dependent, but it will then send it off to Apple Podcast and any streaming platforms.
Nice.
But I'll also put it on YouTube as well. YouTube will be a fairly exclusive one, because if there's any particularly funny moments in this that require reference images, you'll get those on that platform.
Oh, brilliant.
But on the same YouTube page, there's also all of our drunk reactions to things like Class and the 3 specials and things like that.
Excellent.
And we did do a drunk watch of the first 2 episodes of Class. And, man, the tonal shift between a very kind of cheesy first episode and then a very Torchwood-esque blood and gore, swearing, and all the mature content is so distracting. Yep.
It didn't know what it was going to do at the beginning, did it? And it was like, oh, okay, we'll settle for this.
By which point the season had ended. But, I do remember, I think it was just after Class had finished, I went to a Comic-Con in London, and unlike most big names or even small supporting series where they tend to be in that area of Comic-Con where they fence off and you've got a kind of queue, the main cast of Class were just on one of the general booths that you would just kind of walk past, and I think they were trying to push one of these kind of like Big Finish property books, and I felt so bad because no one was there.
Oh no,
which
that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't even know about Class. Like I've talked to people who identify themselves as Whovians, and I say Class, it's like,
they're like, what
are you talking about?
Yeah.
I know Sarah Jane Adventures, I know Torchwood, but what is this abstract little grubby story? What are your thoughts on Danny Pink? I'm not saying overall, because I'm going to say that opinion probably would change.
Yeah, I'd like to think it would change.
But as a first impression,
I could kind of take him or leave him at the beginning, to be honest.
And not just as a character, but also his dynamic with Clara. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had moments where I've liked someone and haven't said anything, and had that moment where I kind of replay it in my head, but how I would like to say it, or how I would have wanted to have said it. But I don't know if it comes off too forced in this.
I think, a little bit. I think they were trying to spoon feed a little bit of these guys have had chemistry and we're going to explore it now.
Yeah.
But, I thought, he pretty decent character, just...
And from what I remember, I mean, it's hinted at in this episode, so I'm not going to say, because it probably is in later episodes, but from what we see, clearly Danny's service is it Afghanistan that he did a tour in?
Yes, I think he said.
Clearly he did some things that he heavily regrets and heavily haunts him.
Yeah.
So to have Clara... I know she doesn't have the context of that, but the way that she kind of jokes about it, the whole idea of, like, him running the school cadets, and she's like, oh, how are you so blasé about this? Just like, because she associates the army just with people being killed.
Yeah.
And he insists that there's more to it than that. I'd like to think that anyone who had gone through what he would immediately be like, oh, okay, you're not for me.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
Or at least
because,
sit
it's quite
down and
very big part of your life.
just kind of talk about it or something. But I don't remember if it's brought up later. But at least and I'm not saying, because again, obviously Clara doesn't have that context. So it'd be wrong of me to say, even though she doesn't have that, Danny should basically fuck her off. But
yeah, but then if you think about it, Clara's gone through and met a whole bunch of soldiers, gone through a whole bunch of battles and stuff. Yeah. So you'd have thought that she'd have had some sort of better grasping of understanding of what's going on.
It does feel like Clara is let down in terms of her writing. Almost feels like she's forgotten that and just is very much on the assuming side and almost on the attack just constantly during that interaction.
Yeah.
She's just ready to just rip him apart. Yeah. With someone that she probably doesn't have all that much day-to-day association with. She probably just sees him in the staff room.
Yeah, see him in the corridor or whatever. Yeah, but to be so brutal towards him about something that you'd like to think, even without any type of context, you'd have some sort of empathy involved, because she's the one that's supposed to be teaching Capaldi about empathy this whole time.
Yeah.
And she calls him out on so many things to then be this odd towards Danny about something that is very obviously and clearly difficult for him.
It feels like it's a step back for Clara.
Yeah.
And I think that's perhaps the little bits that rubbed me the wrong way later in Clara's run, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So I've got down here the reveal that the Reverend Green is the leader of the
Reverend Green forever.
So this is jumping ahead ever so slightly, but there's not all that much to kind of look into until we get into the meat of the episode, which is the fact that we're going into a Dalek.
Yep.
And I might be looking into this too much, but there's that beautiful, very kind of dream sequence-esque moment when they go into the eye stalk of the Dalek and they're kind of going through the mist and stuff. And I love the idea that when they enter that, the sound that they're met with is the sound of a scream.
Yeah.
And that's very harrowing. Like the idea that the sounds that would kind of rattle around in a Dalek is the sounds that the Dalek probably hear the most, is the sounds of their victims.
Yeah,
and
the screaming.
Things like that. We have a beautiful kind of Capaldi disassociated, brutal moment where they're all told when they go into the shrinking ray to keep their mouths shut? No, to keep their mouths open.
Yeah, don't hold the breath.
Yeah, because, and Clara asks why, and he's like, oh, have you ever not punched like a load of holes in a lasagna?
Yeah.
Don't be lasagna.
I've got a badge that says don't be lasagna.
Do you really? Oh my god, that's brilliant. We should have called this podcast Don't Be Lasagna.
So many rules about food from this Doctor. But yeah, no, it was genius. Just didn't need to tell her anything more than that. No. That image is perfectly valid enough to let you know.
We don't need a flashback or anything. Viscerally see this. But it's enough to kind of paint that image. I'm not all that fond of how we go through that beautiful scene with the mist and suddenly we're in a corridor. It's very clear they didn't know what they wanted to do between those two scenes. So it's just like, oh, corridor.
Yeah, corridor.
So the interior of the Dalek, sometimes it feels very imaginative and sometimes it feels very kind of bare. I know it's a Dalek, so it's not going to be decorated or anything like that, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like anything. It's just...
Yeah, but you'd like to think that if they've gone, if we're looking at the interior design of a Dalek, if you've got elements where it's very obviously made for little people to be in, for them...
Sometimes it feels a bit too much like that.
Yeah, it feels like they've just gone and used random bits of set that they found and thought, that'll look good.
Doctor Who's very good at that.
Yeah,
like especially
recycling,
especially in Tennant's run. I think the corridor that they always run down, sometimes it's used as like different sets and I will say this again, slight tangent, but the 11th Doctor of Rewatch that I'm doing, the same episode that I mentioned. I'm going to say last week because I'd like to think at least these two episodes of podcasts are coming out in a weekly release. No promises, actually. No, don't let audience. Don't try yourself. That as a promise. I'm not doing that. There is no plan. But last time on the podcast, I mentioned the hand robots and the kind of hospital-esque episode with the two Amys.
Yeah.
the garden that she ends up in, that's, I'm fairly sure, is used in the Sarah Jane Adventures and in Torchwood during Gwen Cooper's wedding. With the circular
possibly.
fountain and
Yeah.
like the kind of Greek architecture,
yeah.
the columns and stuff. I'm so sure that's the same set.
That would make sense.
And I know Downing Street, I mean, obviously Downing Street's been used for the different iterations of Downing Street, but I'm fairly sure bits of that have been reused for unrelated episodes.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's just the beautiful cheesiness of that Doctor Who, you know, because at least in the Eccleston run and bits of Tennant, they were working with a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
They
They literally had to do the best they could with what they had.
And that's why it's just, it further cements just how impressive some of those episodes are.
Yeah, if you
the
think
fact that they
about
were working with that. And I mean, a brilliant example of that would be the Midnight episode.
Yeah.
Where it was such a low budget episode, but arguably one of the best episodes of all time. Here's an interesting question. I may be like really putting you on the spot, but what is your favourite Doctor Who episode of all time?
Brutal.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, let's see. I don't know how much this is reading into like my psyche. This is really brutal. I loved Oxygen.
Okay. Remind me which Doctor?
Capaldi,
Okay.
where, spoiler alert, he goes blind.
Ah, yeah. I do like the... oh, I'm blind. Well, that explains the Bruce.
I don't know what it is about me, but I really liked seeing him... This sounds brutal. In distress, but still able to actually smack it out of the park and just sort everything out. I loved it as an episode that really kind of beat my heart up.
Yeah.
And it's not even, it's quite devastating to go blind, especially because he's saved Bill in the process.
Yeah.
She's then got to live with that guilt that she did this to him, but didn't. But you know that that's where her brain's going.
Yeah.
I just really liked it. I just thought that the acting of that, and the fact that obviously then Bill dies but doesn't, and I don't know. That's probably one of my favourites.
I'm on the same page as you when it comes to seeing the Doctor in distress, because like 42 is a good example of that.
42's great.
Or Family of Blood, where
Yes,
at least in distress when he's going through like the rewrite of his biology and stuff, and admittedly he doesn't on either of those occasions he doesn't smash out of the park because it's Martha who has to kind of pick up the pieces. But as a young child especially, those moments where you're like, oh my god, I know that the Doctor's not going to regenerate, but he might or at least he's going through something that might kill him or might change him completely, and that's really distressing to see as a child. So but it's nice that at least in your example that he still kind of knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just, I love that episode to bits. But then, again, I don't know why I want a heart-punching one, but the parting of the ways. So, Chris Eccleston's last one. Just, I remember watching that episode as it aired and just crying my eyes out as a kid, just thinking, no, he's gone. And it was devastating for me.
I was so devastated that I didn't like Tennant to start off with.
I hated Tennant to start with. Yeah. Like, no, he's not the same. I can't deal with this. But no, I love a good episode where it just takes your heart and beats it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were saying on the
sadistic.
No, not at all. It's sometimes series that we love can be a bit kind of just can kind of cushion you against the harder topics. And
it's cathartic in a way.
Yeah, but makes you feel kind of human.
Yeah, exactly.
In a world where a lot of us are working, I mean, I've always been quite fascinated by what you do as a profession, but especially for me, where it's like just office work, where it's so mundane and samey, it's nice to have something that reminds you just how human you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, perfect. It's a real shame that we're gonna, as a podcast, we're gonna cover your favourite episode, but we're never gonna cover mine.
Oh no! Which one's yours? So 42, would you say? Or
no. Well, it's just as an example of the Doctor going through hell. No, mine would be Vincent and the Doctor.
Oh, don't! No,
yeah.
Oh, it's that bit at the end where he's talking to Bill Nye. Oh,
but it's such a nice commentary on mental health as well.
Oh my god, it is.
Which I don't think popular media tackles.
It doesn't do it well. It tries, but it doesn't do it well.
But that really does, because it doesn't simplify it.
No.
because it isn't simple. And it shows just how, especially with depression and things like that, how quickly people can flip between having a really good day and just being at their absolute worst.
Yeah. And the fact that Amy thought that they could have saved him, and it didn't work, and it was just...
But it still had a positive impact. I think that's something, because that also reminds people who are on the outside of people who have mental health issues, where a lot of the time, bless those individuals, they might not know how to deal with people and may look at it very black and white, where they're like, I want to save this person. It's like, you may not be able to, but what really matters is the fact that you made a difference.
You gave him some days where he felt top of the world. It just, see, there's just too many good ones. There's just too many good ones. I'll go home later and look through my DVDs and go, no, actually that one was my favourite. Oh no, that one was my favourite. But
they're all good for different reasons, and usually it is because they tackle some very real topics. So going completely on the polar opposite, what did you feel about the Dalek antibodies? Probably the least imaginative design of anything we've ever seen ever, but at least
they did the job.
Well, they weren't the main antagonists, so they were just kind of there. And I suppose, again, a Dalek is very simple in terms of design and also aim. So it correlates that whatever these things are, they wouldn't be all that special looking. They are just balls with Dalek eyes in them that can disintegrate people. But
the fact that, it's a metallic organism rather than an organic. Because obviously, you've got the organic part of the Dalek and then so the fact that someone has engineered, like Davros has engineered antibodies for the Dalek as well. If you think about it too long, you go nuts.
I mean, that's something about Doctor Who that you really shouldn't think about it too much because it all falls apart. Like one of my favourite episodes, it is Heaven Sent, isn't it, where it goes into the confession. Oh, we are going to cover that. That's all right.
We'll cover that one. That's Heaven Sent.
If you think about that episode too much, it starts to fall apart. Like the idea that the first iteration of Capaldi should have been running around naked, or at least
without his clothes.
And bits like that. But
he probably did. Sure. I'm not taking that away from the Doctor.
BBC can't show me.
Exactly. That's why we started like millions of years through.
But I think that's something with Doctor Who. Just don't think about it too much. Just enjoy
what it is.
Enjoy the ride. And also along the vein of don't think about it too much. These Dalek antibodies disintegrate these people, but then somehow their protein ends up in a chute.
Yes.
Because we've got another brilliantly brutal 12th Doctor moment where they end up in that vat and someone's asking after the soldier that got disintegrated, and he's like, oh, they're the top layer if you want to say a few words or something like that. I'm completely forgetting the fact that we talked about this not on recording, but this is a beautiful throwaway moment again where the Doctor says that the vat of goo that they fall in is protein, and this is food for the Daleks. So this is canon now that the Daleks feed to a certain extent on the people that they kill. I've got in my head a very War of the Worlds-esque kind of
tubes.
Which is horrible.
It's disgusting when you think about it too much. It's horrendous. But isn't it one of the soldiers that's about to get disintegrated? He just chucks a tablet at them, and it's a location device. But the soldier thinks it's going to save him. And he's like, absolutely not. No, I just need to know where you're going. And that brutality as well, when he just doesn't care.
I don't know. Well, I was about to say I don't know if that's true, but then we do also get that very visceral moment where the Doctor and Clara are introducing themselves to the soldiers, and Clara says, no, the Doctor says,
I'm his carer. She's my carer. She cares, so I don't have to. Something like that.
So I don't know whether the Doctor actually cares.
I don't know. I think at this point he's just so invested in the puzzle of a good Dalek. He's willing to just make those sacrifices at this point, which is very strange.
I mean, even prior to that, when he saves that soldier and she's mourning over the loss of her brother, I think his only response is like, "You're alive." Be grateful.
Think about that. Yeah, you're alive.
Which
deal with this later.
People just don't work that way.
No, yeah. But then you forget he's an alien. So
True.
at this point, maybe that is how he deals with stuff.
Yeah,
He
and
does
then going
obviously
back
change
to
later.
that interesting point that you made on the last episode, that this is a doctor that's kind of reverted back to almost like childish, ununderstanding of things. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Just hidden in a Scottish husk.
yeah, very grumpy Scottish.
Yeah.
This is jumping ahead massively, but it's something as a Dalek fan I was all over, and this is the first time, at least as far as I'm aware, that we've seen the rapid fire Dalek gun. I know we kind of saw it in Daleks of Manhattan with the Tommy guns that they give to the Dalek mutants.
Yes, yeah.
But we've never seen a Dalek use a rapid fire,
No, there's always that charge up. Yeah.
and always a classic exterminate prior to it. I know sometimes you don't see it, and I suppose that it's good that you don't, because it would rob from the moment if you were just hearing that constantly against multiple adversaries. But it's something new and something that I was happy to see. Usually with these creatures, I'm usually against seeing new things, like with the Cyberman changes and things like that, but I was grateful to see it.
Yeah.
And the Dalek's still taking its time, which is something that I've always loved about the Daleks. They're never in any hurry to kill, but they will.
Yeah. It's because they know that they can't be outrun or outdone. I think it's great that,
How sinister is it that that Davros built this thing, and he, like you said earlier, went to the trouble to create antibodies and what they would look like and what they would do, but at no point thought these should move fast.
Yeah, no, he's just
because
like,
they don't have to.
Yeah. He was fully aware. Actually, no, they can just cruise.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose they do move slightly faster when they're flying, but that makes sense for... And they're still sinister when they do that. Again, Daleks in Manhattan with the two Daleks that are bombing Hooverville.
Yeah.
Or the Daleks that take out the Valiant, and
Yeah.
they're moving quite fast,
quite quickly, aren't
but they don't lose. I don't think the Daleks have ever lost their sinisterness completely.
No.
The Paradigm Daleks are probably the closest they got to that, just because multicolored.
I think it was the colour mostly.
Yeah.
I think if they'd have just kept them either the bronze or
Or at least
another
if
darker colour,
they dulled them down.
Yeah,
made them kind of
turning them into
not-
Skittles was just odd.
Yeah, and I know perhaps maybe this was for the kids to be able to very clearly define what these Daleks were meant to be, assuming they'd gone ahead with their original vision where the Daleks were going to make more of an appearance in this colour scheme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like it robbed from their sinisterness. There's a lot to be said about the kind of grubbier, faded colours.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I suppose they kind of went back to, like when you see them again, there's only a maroon one and a white one, and you never see the.
You never see the blue. Or
I think you see a blue one in.
what do you? Yeah.
In Asylum of the Daleks, there is one blue one there.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near as egregious. It's like a kind of royal blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost TARDIS blue. So this good Dalek makes appearances later, which I'm excited to talk about, but we'll get there. The Doctor calls him Old Rusty, which I think's quite fun.
Yeah.
For whatever reason in my head at the moment, I'm getting a Thomas the Tank Engine and a Magical Railroad memory, which I really wish I wasn't having. I am. With I don't know if you've ever seen that film, but with the character Lady, she's a tank engine who's like her soul's been robbed, and she's normally quite vibrant, but she's rusty and dilapidated and stuff.
That's sad.
Yeah, I mean, some of the themes of that film are pretty.
I've not seen it, but
if you can find like a reviewer out there that does it, I'd recommend watching that, because there's some brilliantly stupid moments, but also there's some they actually went here, and it's quite emotional for Thomas the Tank
for a
Engine.
train.
Yeah. I liked that the Doctor had already given this Dalek a name, because he was already kind of anticipating the idea of this Dalek could be different, disassociating it from this kind of every Dalek is the same military unit.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of a dig.
It is a little bit. It's a little bit of hope
Old
mixed
piece
with
of
a little
shit.
bit of a dig. Yeah. Yeah, it's just that instant hope that this could be different. This could be something amazing.
Which is weird for the 12th Doctor, because he's been unbelievably
pessimistic.
Yeah, he's been very pessimistic prior to this. But I suppose the Daleks are one of his oldest memories. So
yeah,
he's so desperate to find that as a as a reassuring thing that he could change them and make them better, and maybe prevent some of the devastation. I don't know whether it's established how early these Daleks are. I mean, they're Time War Daleks. So
I don't think. Yeah, I don't know.
No, so I don't know if he's trying to stop something that's quite important later on.
Yeah.
But he's definitely got an ulterior motive in mind. But also one that he's quite eager to be like, oh no, actually I was right, when it is proof that perhaps the Daleks can never change.
They can't change, yeah.
I found that exchange quite weird between him and Clara. So I can't remember whether Clara has much... I mean, obviously you've got the Impossible Girl stuff with the Daleks, but I don't remember how much she encounters the Daleks.
I don't think very much.
To then start formulating this, the Doctor was right, and like the whole kind of prejudice against the Daleks and how opposed and angry she was about this. And it's like, you've barely seen them.
I don't think she has. Unless, again, we're looking back at where she's gone into all of his timelines. I don't think there were many, if any, except for the Asylum of the Daleks, where she interacted with
So again, that exchange felt odd.
Felt a bit forced.
Between them. And I think it was far better done in Dalek with Rose and Eccleston, when she didn't necessarily take the Dalek side, but could see the Time War fighter within him and was trying to kind of change him and make him see this less black and white.
Which is lovely to do, like, because she was bringing a whole kind of... She was very young at the time, wasn't she, like Rose? And
16, wasn't it?
16, I think she's supposed to be.
Which, again, is ridiculous.
But to have that kind of, not naivety, but like a kind of hopefulness that it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as comparisons go.
It's really not that important to the episode, but you see Dalek control within the ship, and it looks like they didn't have the budget for Dalek props, and those are very clearly miniatures.
Definitely.
Which I suppose is fair for such a short shot.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get... I think there were like 10 Daleks there.
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
For such a short shot. Although, saying that, you see the Daleks that then invade the base, and I'm fairly sure all of those are life-size. For the most part.
Yeah, no, good point.
I don't know.
They make decisions.
There was just a moment where like, someone came in with some toys. And we'll make this the Dalek control. And that's something that I wanted to bring up, that you don't often see the Daleks' infiltration strategy, but there's something very kind of... I don't know if you've ever played the Halo series, but very kind of zombie horde, but moving quite slow, Flood-esque moment where all the Daleks come in and they just swarm in.
Yeah.
And it, again, is quite a sinister thing. Because I think the preview for the episode, as well as the episode itself, you see just like the eye stalk lights and the lights initially within the fog.
Yes.
And then they all emerge.
Suddenly just appear that there's like actually way more than you expected.
Yeah. And interestingly, these humans, I suppose they've been fighting them for a while, but they can actually destroy them to a certain extent. You see a couple of their blaster shots actually
make contact
and
do some damage.
Destroy some of the Daleks. Which I don't think necessarily robs from their sinisterness, but that is something that I loved about early Time War Daleks. That when the humans went up against them, there was virtually nothing they could do. I think there was one time during the parting of the ways when someone managed to knock out an eye stalk.
Yeah, I think they shot at their eyes.
Yeah,
the eye stalk and blinded it, didn't it?
It was Elaine the Pain from Tracy Beaker.
It was. Yeah.
Niche reference.
Oh my god. Forgot that she was in that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget how many Tracy Beaker actors are in.
Oh, in it, yeah.
The next one that comes to mind is Duke from Tracy Beaker, who
played
a long name that I can't come up.
Oh no, that's good. Yeah, I can't remember.
I was trying. I think for a moment I thought I'd forgot. I thought of his partner's name, Foon. His partner's name's Foon, but I can't. I think his name's quite long and.
Oh, God.
It's not quite Banakathalata, but it's
something like that. Something very similar, isn't it?
And that's something that I've always loved about Doctor Who, is the random times where these actors that, like Bill Nye for Vincent and the Doctor, where they'll crop up and you'll be like, oh, that's so
that's this guy. Oh my god!
And as someone who's quite eager to get into acting and improve their acting ability, I know it's quite a leap, especially now that Doctor Who has become far more consumed around the world. It's no longer this grubby little show that we dig out like a VHS tape from a car boot sale. It's this is quite well.
It's quite well loved now.
Yeah,
it always was, but
which is lovely,
more widely loved.
But I think it does then make it even more difficult for aspiring actors to get into it. Just even a supporting cast, you need to have done a lot to be able to get into it. Which, I mean, with some of the actors that got into Doctor Who and didn't do well in it, the character of Adam, where he was the one that they picked up from Van Statten's museum.
Yeah.
We're not really going to go into this in the podcast because I think it's, so many other people have tackled it, but just as a slight nod and acknowledgement, the actor's a bit of a prick.
Is it?
Yeah, he's done some bad
Did kind of come across as the character.
Yeah,
Very unlikable
explains
character,
it.
wasn't he?
But there's apparently a comic strip out there where he has a follow-up story where he, after getting deposited back on Earth, he then attempts to kidnap a load of Doctor Who companions as revenge. And essentially all the doctors, or at least some of them, find Adam and just beat him up.
Oh my god! I love that.
Which is fantastic.
That is genius. Yeah, no, he was a bit of a prickish character. So
he was, yeah.
Swinging off on his own, getting a fucking hole cut out of his head.
But was just, I suppose, another example of just how rubbish Rose was to Mickey.
Yeah, 100%.
We won't really tackle this in at least this podcast run, but justice for Mickey as a character.
Justice for Mickey.
Because he was so badly treated by the Doctor, by Rose, by pretty much everyone around him. The only one who actually treated him with any respect, apart from when Rose went missing, was Jackie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was...
She was really lovely to him most of the time.
Apart from that one
Apart from that one time where she's like, you
killed her.
Yeah. No, I liked Mickey. I thought he was cool. I liked that he eventually ended up with Martha. And I thought that was quite nice to actually give him a wholesome ending.
What happened to Thomas Milligan?
What happened to Thomas Milligan? We'll never know.
Maybe Martha realised, this Thomas Milligan that I fell in love with, who'd been, you could argue, kind of forged by the Master's oppression and things like that, is not the Thomas Milligan.
It's not the guy I know now,
like in this parallel universe. So there's not really all that much to kind of notably say while they're within the Dalek, apart from the fact that the Doctor climbs up to, I guess, in front of the Dalek. It's unclear where exactly he is within the Dalek when he does his kind of like speech.
Yeah, where he talks to the Dalek. Yeah, it's almost like it's looking at his mind's eye or something, isn't it?
Yeah, but then sometimes there's shots where it almost is that he's in front of the Dalek embryo.
Yeah.
And there's some recycled shots that they're using. Chief among them is a soldier's death in Dr. Van Statten's museum, which I then ask, is that
Dalek?
But then it wasn't, because it killed itself.
He blew himself up. Yep.
So does the Dalek have like a hive mind?
Hive mind, possibly, yeah.
They can access?
Make it more similar to a Cyberman.
True. And I suppose the Daleks do have a hive database, because that's how the 11th Doctor is able to, or Clara is able to delete his presence
from them, yeah.
But it just seemed weird seeing those shots. Like there was a shot of the Valiant with all the Daleks as well.
Yeah.
And it's nice that Doctor Who makes it clear that a good Dalek could only be forged by something as important as the birth of a star.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't something... It didn't just see, like, a puppy and was like...
Yeah, like, ooh, that's
a nice puppy. But no, it saw something that was so... that would be burnt into your mind's eye forever. And didn't the Daleks say that it's something like, as much as we will kill, it's very clear that the universe will just continue to show new life. So it kind of came to the conclusion that what we do, there is no point to what we do. But then after the Dalek is fixed, it then falls back onto its normal programming and starts then hunting down the humans. And then that's when the Doctor, I suppose, is trying to appeal to its better nature, but its better nature then becomes, I'll just kill all the Daleks.
Yep.
Which I don't... The Doctor seems very upset about this, but at the same time, is this not good?
Is this not exactly what he's trying to do the entire time?
Like, what did you want the Dalek to essentially just detach its gun and be like, I won't do anything? Which
was he trying to create a pacifist Dalek?
I think that's a bit much to ask.
Yeah.
This is something that's been programmed for mass extermination and war. To ask it to do that, I think it's enough that it's turned on its own kind.
Yeah.
But I suppose also you could argue that the Doctor is really saddened by the fact that the Dalek takes the Doctor's hatred and makes that its own as well. And the Doctor has that brilliant line where it's like, you looked inside me and you saw hatred, that's not victory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole opposite point of his entire existence. He's trying his best to spread kindness and make sure everything gets its chance. And yeah, for the Dalek to only see or only find value in the hatred is probably pretty gutting.
Yeah. And I suppose that's something that I've glossed over annoyingly, is that earlier in the episode the Doctor sits down with Clara and asks her if he's a good man.
A good man, yeah.
Which is a massive question to ask, especially so early into his regeneration, where she's seen so many examples where he's not been great.
Yeah.
And
her honesty is pretty savagely refreshing.
Yeah.
To say she didn't know.
But that he tries to be, and she considers that to be the point.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't go about it the way that she would always intend to.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, Rusty wheels his way off and goes onto that Dalek ship and wipes them all out. And I don't think we see him again until way later.
Way later.
I can't for the life of me remember how this episode ends, whether Clara's now just with the Doctor or whether he takes her back to school.
I think he drops her back to school. What's the episode 3? Robots of Sherwood?
Yeah.
Does he pick her up again at that point?
I don't know. I mean, that'll be clarified when we get to that. But there are a few cheesy moments which I've noted down with the Daleks, and one that comes to mind is when Rusty turns up and starts gunning down the other Daleks. There's that one Dalek who just remarks, "Under attack from a Dalek."
Yeah.
It falls a bit.
It's like, yes, we can see that.
Yeah, there's a Doctor who sometimes does that thing where it explains stuff as we're seeing it, and it's like, this is not a big Finish production. We can
actually see it. Yeah.
No one's going for full immersion where they're sitting there with their eyes closed. But yeah, overall, it's a fun little Dalek story. It's
a nice filler episode.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot apart from the Doctor struggling with his own identity and wanting his companion to kind of reassure him.
Yeah.
And like you say, there's that brutal honesty where the Doctor's probably really eager for Clara to say, actually, no, you're great.
Yeah.
You're the best. But she just can't bring herself to do it.
Yeah.
And she just, I don't know.
Because as much as the companions do pull him up, there's always that adoration. So he pretty much has constantly had that, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. And now he's properly questioning it, and she can't give him the reassurance yet.
I've always entertained the idea of what, this is going slightly off topic, but what Donna would have been like had she seen the Doctor during his Time Lord victorious moments.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been so much a fires upon pay. I think she just would have sat him down and be like, shut the fuck up.
Going on? I don't think he'd have got away with half as much of his shit.
No, and I think also it's like, again, making this a bit real worldy, but like serial killers who choose their press names, it's about as lame as that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I have chosen, I'm the Time Lord victorious, and it's like, that's lame.
Yeah, she'd have been like, absolutely not.
She would have sat him down and be like, you're lame. And I've been spending these 2 episodes really trying not to talk about the specials, and I know it's in our minds because it's the new stuff that's come out,
most recent stuff.
But I suppose maybe we'll get to it. But that's something that I suppose I could raise, and it's something that is less and less possible with New Who because a lot of these companions either die or would never come back or minds wiped or whatever. But if there's a companion that you could see, wanted to see come back for Shooty's run, who would it be? There's talk that there are going to be some recurring companions in a Unit series. I don't know if you know much about.
No.
There's 2 spin-off series they're planning to do, apparently. They're going to do Unit, and they're going to do a Sea Devils series.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting, but if there were any creatures out there, the sea devils would not be the one where I was like, I demand spin.
No, yeah, I don't need more sea devils. I don't think.
Although saying that, there's a beautiful mini-sode with Joe Grant where she's with like a load of kids and she goes to a cave and she finds like a sea devil egg or something, and it's talking about like preservation of life and stuff, and I was just in tears just through that.
That's pretty. I like that.
But yeah, there's talk that perhaps Martha Jones might be coming back for the unit series.
That would be really cool.
Because this is meant to be like a female-led unit, which is great because I've completely forgotten her name. Who's
Kate?
Kate, yeah. Kate Lethbridge Stewart. She's fantastic.
She's absolutely brilliant.
And
then obviously you've got Donna working for Unit now.
Yeah.
Got I can't remember the name of the last we were introduced to in the Giggle.
Oh, the scientific advisor number 30 or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. She was great. And then you got Bonnie Tyler. Yeah, chuck in Martha Jones there. Pretty decent.
I mean, the unit that we've seen during Jodie's run, they were never shy about bringing in old companions because we had Ace, didn't we, at one point?
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be lovely to see old companions come back, but I asked this question and don't honestly have an answer myself.
I'm literally trying to wrap my brain thinking, I don't know.
Trying
to think who would gel well with him.
Because there are a lot of companions or possible companions. The way I think I've heard Whovians describe it as is the never to be companions because they die and they're usually 1 episode or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And a great example of that would be Linda with a Y.
Oh, Linda with a Y.
I bloody loved her. I think she was so sweet. She wasn't that annoying kind of ditzy character. She had a purpose and she rose to the occasion when she was needed to. But
and she was fucking terrified. But she did it. No, she broke my heart when she died.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, again, the beautiful Doctor Who brutality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's gone and that's
it.
That's it.
She'd be good.
I'd like to see... Again, that's something that Russell did quite nicely, and some iterations of Doctor Who writers have done quite nicely, is the companion's family and friends. I know that for whatever reason, Jackie's had a load of Big Finish episodes.
Oh, brilliant!
Like she's joined up with River Song, and so there's just these random stories out there with, for whatever reason, Jackie Tyler's there.
Tyler.
Usually there's not even a doctor, it's just Jackie's there.
That's because Jackie doesn't need no doctor.
No, she doesn't.
She can carry herself. She'd be great.
Love and Monsters.
Oh, God!
Is the best that Jackie is as a character.
Absolutely brilliant.
She's like, I will acknowledge that I hate the Doctor at times, but I will do everything I can to stop people from getting in their way and causing them any harm.
Yeah. It's all that it's a massive mother bear instinct, isn't it, that she's looking after her kid.
It's a great example because I dare say there are a lot of parents out there who have children who are now grown up and have partners or friends that they don't like, which at least the Ninth Doctor is a great example of that.
Yeah.
And as much as she will happily slap him about and call him out on his shit and stuff, she has very quickly fully accepted that Rose is never leaving him, at least under her own volition. She's never going to do it. And that is something that I think I want to see more. And we kind of did with Shooty's run a bit. I don't know how you felt about Ruby's family, but some of those moments got me quite choked up. Yeah. I loved Cherry Sunday. I think she's such a blast.
Absolutely brilliant. Just this savage little old lady sitting in her bed.
Yeah.
I just think she's great. Yeah, no, I loved the family dynamic of that lot.
And I think that's just a nod to Russell being back, is that he can once again write people really well.
Great. And he writes complex relationships very well and very engaging.
Yeah.
And accessible to people that wouldn't necessarily understand much about foster family. So to have that, I think, is lovely.
But doesn't over-explain it, where a lot of things can go unsaid, but you kind of have your own interpretation of it, and that's wonderful. One day I'd love to do a full breakdown of Love and Monsters, because some of it's really good, and some of it's really shit, and one bit of it is highly troubling.
What, the fact he's living with a paving slab?
His paving slab fleshlight is...
Oh no!
There's no way to bat around it. He says during the episode that they have a love life of some kind.
Oh my god.
It's not okay.
It's not.
A lot of Whovians have said it would have been more merciful to kill her.
I mean, it probably would have been.
Yeah. I know she's now immortal, but what happens when Elton dies? Is she just going to be a dusty paving slab and going to scare the bejeebus out of anyone who comes into that flat? but the less that's probably been listened
Clear
to
about that,
that,
the
the
better,
better.
I did like Elton though as a character. I thought he was pretty interesting.
There was a lot of talk that Elton was going to be in the place of Harriet Jones during the whole Subwave Network thing, and I don't know if I necessarily would have been upset about that.
No, I think that would have been pretty decent.
As much as I love Harriet Jones, and her point in that episode was really well executed.
Yeah.
I think seeing Elton come back would have been like a what, but also oh
yeah.
But the way they left out that episode, I think there would have been a lot of Whovian fans out there like no,
Nah.
I can't.
We know what he's done.
Yeah, I can't handle it. But yeah, I suppose. To wrap the episode up, because we're just going to tangent it.
This one's
There's
been a
nothing more to
massive
say
tangent.
on Into the Dalek. It's just a fun little side story. Interesting that they bring the Daleks back so quickly into a new Doctor's run.
Yeah, and with not much impact.
So I hear a lot of Whovians talk that apparently there is an agreement with the Terry Nation estate that the Daleks have to make at least one appearance in every season.
Oh.
So I don't know whether that means that we're going to see them in Ncuti's run.
I mean, possibly.
With the way they got around it in the past with one of Matt Smith's seasons, it's just like a head.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
like
to be a
stalk.
full Dalek story. But apparently that's something that's floating around as a thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just trying to remember where a Dalek appeared in Jodie's.
There have been several Dalek stories with Jodie's, because she had the reconnaissance Dalek.
Oh,
she had the Dalek police thingies.
Yes.
She had the
It's all
Dalek.
flooding back now,
She had the
yeah.
Dalek Groundhog Day episode.
Yes. Yeah. Oh.
She had the Jack Harkness. I think he was part of the police. I can't remember where Jack falls into the stories with the Daleks.
Oh, I can't remember anymore. He's spread around so much now,
He
isn't he?
is.
He's everywhere.
And again, not to dive into, I guess, real life stuff, but I'm never going to say, because it's a bit of a coward thing to say, if you can detach yourself from what an actor or a writer has done,
Yeah,
because that's a bit of a coward excuse. But at the same time, Jack Harkness as a character, I really, really liked.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see come back. And it's a shame that we never actually got the full kind of answering to the Face of Bow thing, because I don't know if... I think we actually talked about this, that he was meant to be in the Good Man Goes to War.
Yes.
And he was going to get beheaded by the Headless Monks, and that was going to be the transformation.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's talks of Torchwood starting up again and stuff like that. But anyway, thank you so much, Peter, for joining me for episode 2 of Never Ever Eat Pears. Don't you eat pears?
Don't touch them.
There are so many better fruit out there. Bananas are good.
Bananas are great.
And hopefully you'll join us again for Robots of Sherwood.
Yeah.
And this kind of Docky Who rewatch, re-experience podcast. But thank you so much for listening to us ramble. And hopefully see you guys in the next episode.
Moisturize me, moisturize me.